This program proudly brought to you by Citibank, bringing the spirit of competition to personal banking, and Ansett Australia, one of the world's great airlines.
Good evening, I'm Sandra Sully. This is the Late Night News. Heading the Late Night News, a stormy week ahead for Carmen Lawrence over the Eastern Royal Commission. Another warning to Australian parents, eucalyptus oil could kill young children. And the Queen leads Britain's final tribute to her war veterans. But first tonight, another fiery week coming up in Canberra when federal parliament resumes after its winter break. The opposition is expected to launch a major attack on Health Minister Carmen Lawrence over the public funding of her battle with the Eastern Royal Commission.
The political circus is back in town. Today, federal parliament was the venue for international brass bands. Tonight and tomorrow, Australia's 224 MPs will be marching in for the spring session, possibly the last if an election's held early in the new year. The heat is on Health Minister Carmen Lawrence, who claims continued strong support from the party despite damaging testimony at the Eastern Royal Commission in Perth.
Enjoying an enormous amount of support from my colleagues who recognise that if anyone is pushed over by this process, then some very important principles are prejudiced in the process.
Parliamentary rules will stop the opposition questioning the evidence so far, but not questions like this.
Carmen Lawrence is the one who's made the issue one that can be addressed. She's the one who's been spending $10,000 a day of taxpayers' money to try and shut down the inquiry and then going on every talk show in town to try and put a point of view. Now, you can't have it both ways.
Criticism of foreign policy will also be a major issue, including nuclear tests and the burning question of flags versus free speech. The week begins with a state visit to Canberra by Philippines President Fidel Ramos, who got in some dawn golf practice in Melbourne. The government is hoping for some positive foreign affairs coverage, refocusing attention on our bright economic future in Asia. But regular blowouts in the current account deficit, which will almost certainly be repeated again this month, have ruined the picture. So the government's main strategy in this parliamentary session will be to repackage its economic message to win back support from the voters. Paul Smith, 10 News.
Sunday traffic through Sydney was disrupted for most of today by protesters. They took their fight against aircraft noise from the runways to the streets. More than 500 protesters rode buses, trucks and cars around town to drive home their message to the government.
The convoy snaked its way through Sydney, stretching 7 kilometres from the first car to the last. With noise blaring and banners flying, the message was clear.
No more noise! No more noise!
The protesters assembled at 8 locations, from Pymble on Sydney's North Shore to Marrickville in the south. Trucks and cars joined the cavalcade as it moved towards Sydney Airport.
It emphasises just how far it is out that people are affected at the moment. 27 kilometres, hundreds of thousands of people, and it's a good way of bringing home the message to all of Australia.
Once they reached the domestic terminal, the real headache began. The protesters moved through Sydney Airport at a snail's pace, making it impossible for travellers to get to or from the terminals.
I'm really annoyed because I just want to get out of here.
I don't think how the inconvenience to the general public is going to help their cause. They should go and protest in Canberra.
Some passengers had to walk 2 kilometres to make their flights.
That's unfortunate for people, but they've got to understand that our lives are disrupted every day. 17 hours a day we're getting hammered by this noise.
The convoy then moved on to the international terminal. There's already been half a dozen major anti-aircraft noise demonstrations, and organisers said today's wouldn't be the last. Lyndal Davies, 10 News.
Australian parents have been warned again about the dangers of eucalyptus oil. A new study has shown that eucalyptus, which is poisonous if swallowed, is sometimes being given to children to treat colds.
It's used for everything and anything, from cleaning to deodorising or clearing a blocked nose. But it's also a poison.
It's a hidden danger to people who don't realise it's poisonous.
The danger is if the oil in its concentrated form is swallowed, only a few mils can be life-threatening to a young child. For them, the oil can lead to unconsciousness, vomiting or even lung damage.
It's one that we would get every week. We would get some calls about eucalyptus oil. Particularly in the winter months, it seems to be more common.
A study published today examined 109 cases of eucalyptus poisoning in Victoria over 11 years. Most were accidental, but in 27 cases the oil was administered by a parent.
In a number of cases, the parents have mistaken the eucalyptus oil for the medicine and given the child eucalyptus oil to drink, and that's caused serious problems.
Eucalyptus oil is now the 4th most common cause of poisoning in young children. No one has died from the oil recently, but doctors say it should not be administered and must be kept out of reach of children.
Be aware that it's a poison. Store it in a place where you keep other poisons, preferably in a child-proof cabinet.
If a child does swallow the oil, the National Poisons Information Centre can be contacted on 131126, 24 hours a day. Josie MacRae, 10 News.
Australia's tribute to her war veterans ended in Melbourne today. More than 20,000 crosses planted at the Shrine of Remembrance to mark the end of the Second World War were removed to be cremated.
At day's end, a simple ceremony marked the closing of Melbourne's Field of Remembrance. More than 20,000 crosses have been planted during recent weeks, all dedicated to the memory of family, friends or comrades who lost their lives during wartime. Tens of thousands of people have visited the field, and today, as Victorian Scouts removed the wooden crosses, they were reminded of just why planting a cross has meant so much to so many.
To place a cross or an emblem in memory of somebody that they have lost or may have lost or who have since died since the Second World War. To honour them and to remember them.
The symbolism of the field was not lost on those removing the crosses, a generation which has never known Australia at war.
13,000 or 10,000 people put these things in.
The wooden crosses will now be burnt and the ashes scattered over this field on Remembrance Day. Earlier, more than 1,000 legacy widows made their annual pilgrimage to the shrine. They also took a last look at the crosses planted in memory of loved ones. Laureen Deale, 10 News.
Thousands of veterans also paraded past the Queen in London as Britain wound up her commemoration. That report when the late night news continues. And in America, bringing down the house in real style.
Now there's a treat that's just right for everyone to enjoy together, anytime. New Rondos from Milky Way. Lightly whipped, creamy milk centres with crunchy hazelnut pieces inside a delicious milk chocolate egg.
Very thoughtful of you, Master Freeman.
Absolutely. New Rondos from Milky Way. The ideal anytime treat.
Original Masters, 100 of the best albums ever released at a price you can now afford. CDs only $14.95. Original Masters, featuring Bette Midler, Aretha Franklin, Carly Simon, Foreigner, Linda Ronstadt, Christopher Cross, and more. Original Masters, over 100 titles, only $14.95 at all good music stores now.
It's the Reject Shop Final Clearance Frenzy. Reject. It's last shopper standing with heart-stopping bargains. Look, defrosting tray, $10. Rubber broom, $8. Revlon nail polish, $2. The Reject Shop laundry powder, $1.75. Peerless bath mat, $19.95. Reject. Don't panic! Remember Dad on Father's Day. Fashion watches, $10. Sports socks, $4.75. Fold-away workbench, $49. Don't hang about. Reject. Look for the catalogue and rush to the Reject Shop. All you need is loose change.
McDonald's Triple Cheeseburger. 3 all-beef patties, 3 delicious slices of cheese with pickles, ketchup, mustard and onions. It's about as cheesy as you can get.
7:30 Monday on the show that's got it all. Ross Greenwood checks out nature-based tourism.
Something from which all Australians can profit.
Tonya Todman's over the moon with the latest decor fad.
We've certainly milked them for all they're worth.
Ian Hewitson cooks an Asian delicacy,
which is a rice paper parcel.
Lynn Talbot explores preserving precious items.
Restoring treasures to their former glory.
And Jim Brown pays homage to the greatest rocker of them all.
Elvis Presley is a 20th century icon.
Healthy, wealthy and wise, 7:30 Monday.
You're watching the Late Night News. Vintage aircraft roared above Buckingham Palace as the Queen led Britain's final great tribute to veterans of the so-called Forgotten War. More than 20,000 marched in review as a Lancaster bomber dropped 1 million poppies on their parade.
They came not so much to celebrate, but to remember the friends and family lost so far away from home.
Will you remember the causes for which they endured adversity and for which many fought and died?
Some 25,000 World War II veterans came to Buckingham Palace in London for the remembrance ceremony attended by the royal family. Fighting a war on the other side of the world, they became known as the Forgotten Army. More than 12,000 Britons died while prisoners of war in Japanese labor camps. Those who survived returned home with stories of horrible treatment, malnutrition, and even torture. While marching today, many of these former POWs say 50 years is not long enough for them to forgive the Japanese. Sid Tavender leads a group of veterans who are seeking financial compensation from the Japanese. He says suffering continued long after the war was over.
I think that lasted maybe about 2 years, 2.5 years. I couldn't look at my wife. I had arguments with her. I had terrible nightmares.
When these soldiers came home 50 years ago, there was no marching band or ceremony. They weren't treated as heroes. But today, a British bomber dropped 1 million red poppies in remembrance of those who died in the 2 world wars. Tonight, tens of thousands of people turned out to watch a spectacular climax to the war end observance and to reminisce to the music of the war days. At one point, it seemed that all of London was singing, each remembering the war, but all celebrating peace.
At the same time, right-wing militants remembered the death of one of the veterans' leading enemies, Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy. More than 200 neo-Nazis from Germany, Britain and Scandinavia rallied in the Danish town of Roskilde. Scores of left-wingers lined the streets as they chanted slogans praising Hess, and clashes soon broke out. Police used tear gas and batons to disperse the marchers halfway through their planned parade. A road accident has caused a major setback to efforts to end fighting in the Balkans. 3 senior American envoys were killed when their vehicle plunged into a ravine near Sarajevo and exploded. But Western leaders say the peace process has only been delayed, not abandoned.
The accident happened on a steep road on Mount Igman, leading into Sarajevo. All 3 were riding in a French armored personnel carrier when it apparently pulled over to the shoulder, which collapsed after days of heavy rain. A French soldier with them was also killed. UN aid convoys using the mountain road are sometimes fired on by Bosnian Serb gunners. U.S. officials tell NBC News that for that reason, and because of the weather, the peace delegation had hoped to use a different road into Sarajevo, but that Serbian leaders said they couldn't guarantee the convoy's safety. Those killed in the accident were Ambassador Robert Fraser, a career State Department official, Joseph Krusel, a European policy official from the Pentagon, and Nelson Drew, an Air Force lieutenant colonel assigned to the National Security Council staff. President Clinton said after getting a full accounting of what happened, he's satisfied that this was not an attack on the U.S. peace mission.
I am convinced that it was a tragic accident. I am very grateful for the service that these fine men have rendered to their country and to the world. And I am encouraged by the determination of their colleagues to continue on.
The bodies of the diplomats arrived late today at the Sarajevo airport. They died on what was to have been the final day of the peace mission to Bosnia.
The young woman who fought for almost 3 years to be allowed into an all-male military college now wants to be a teacher. Shannon Faulkner says she's tired of being in the spotlight, but hopes other women will follow her lead.
Shannon Faulkner was at home in Powdersville, South Carolina today, receiving flowers from supporters and insisting that it was mental stress, not her physical condition, that forced her to drop out of the Citadel.
It was the stress from everybody watching me and from the 2.5 years that had gone by of fighting, of going through hell just to get to this point.
As the first woman cadet in the Citadel's 152-year-old history, she was alone and isolated from the moment she arrived on campus. While other cadets had roommates with whom they could share the misery of Hell Week, she had no one. In 1976, Pat Locke was one of the first women to enter West Point. She knows how painful loneliness can be.
It just can't be underestimated, the impact that it has on you mentally and physically.
At the Citadel today, training continued in the all-male tradition. Last night, cadets celebrated its return at a favorite hangout.
Somehow with Miss Faulkner leaving, we've regained that. I wanted to come to school because it was all male, and I felt like she took that away from me. Well, now I feel like I got it back.
But Shannon Faulkner says her withdrawal from the Citadel will not end the fight to admit women there.
The law is still the law. No matter if I succeed in the Citadel or not, the law is still the law, and they have proven that. They have proven that the law was on my side and I had the right to go to the Citadel.
But the Citadel is hoping for court approval of an alternative cadet program at an all-women's school miles away, so the Citadel itself can remain all-male. Faulkner says she's had enough of the media spotlight. She wants to finish her education, she hasn't decided where, and become a teacher.
500 kilograms of dynamite have shattered the second biggest high-rise housing estate in America, and no one is complaining. 6 multi-story buildings were felled in a spectacular controlled implosion. Residents and city officials alike condemned them as poorly designed and built and a slum haunted by drug addicts and criminals. Soon, former residents will return to new low-density housing. 2 Spanish mountaineers rescued from the world's second highest peak have confirmed that British climber Alison Hargreaves is dead. But it's still not clear how many died in the incident near the crest of the Himalayan mountain K2 in Pakistan.
Alison Hargreaves did make it to the top of the mountain K2. These pictures were taken as she started her ascent last month. But 2 Spanish climbers on the mountain with her last Sunday believe she did not make it back. At 8,000 meters, just below the summit, they say they saw a body 100 meters away and the dark jacket with a lilac motif they had seen the British climber wear. The 2 said there had been no avalanche. They believe she fell and may have died of exposure, exhausted and in freezing temperatures. Meanwhile, colleagues of the climber Paul Nunn, filmed here in Scotland last year, have finally returned to their base in the Himalayas. They say they saw him and the climber Jeff Tier killed in an avalanche on a nearby peak 2 weeks ago.
A radio that uses neither batteries nor power leads is about to end the isolation of remote areas of the world. The revolutionary radio is the brainchild of a British inventor who wanted to give third world peoples the chance to improve their lives.
Conscious of all of that. It's a short wind over there, and then on this side there's the on-off button and the shortwave, medium wave and FM buttons. It's a 3-band receiver. Volume and tuning, and on the front fine tuning for shortwave.
Now a South African company is battling to keep up with orders. A quick crank gives 40 minutes of radio reception from around the world. Melbourne taxi drivers again the victim of violence. That story after the break. And Brisbane farewells a piece of her maritime history.
Now there's a treat that's just right for everyone to enjoy together, anytime. New Rondos from Milky Way. Lightly whipped, creamy milk centres with crunchy hazelnut pieces inside a delicious milk chocolate egg.
Very thoughtful of you, Master Freeman.
Absolutely. New Rondos from Milky Way. The ideal anytime treat.
If you have loved ones far away, a Telstra Family and Friends Flexi plan can help you save on long-distance calls and calls to mobiles. With 10% off calls to your 5 best friends.
Arnie, you're still my best mate?
Good boy. Telstra Family and Friends. To save 10% on long-distance calls to your 5 best friends, call this number now.
New Vienta V6 Grande turns on the power. From only $27,160. Another powerful reason to buy Vienta V6.
A Melbourne taxi driver has been stabbed and repeatedly slashed by 2 knife-wielding attackers. It's the latest in a series of incidents involving cab drivers who are still calling for greater security measures.
The taxi driver was attacked by 2 men after being asked to take them to the western suburb of Sunshine. The pair grabbed up to $500 but continued the attack, slashing the driver several times before stabbing him in the stomach. Police described the attack as callous and unprovoked, saying the victim was lucky to escape with his life.
He asked them not to poke him, and he told them that he was married and had children and was basically pleading for his life.
The driver is now recovering in the Western Hospital after undergoing an emergency operation, but police say he could have fared far worse, the attack only ending after a passing motorist stopped. The taxi was stolen by the men and later found abandoned nearby. And 2 men are recovering in hospital after suffering smoke inhalation during a boarding house fire early this morning. Firemen had to rescue 5 men from the building, 1 who was stranded on a first-floor balcony. The fire is believed to have started after one of the boarders fell asleep while smoking in bed. Allan Reece, 10 News.
A teenager has plunged 100 metres to his death in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney. The 17-year-old was with a group of friends when he fell down a cliff onto a railway line. Police are still investigating how it happened.
We don't know at this stage whether the person slipped or anything. Inquiries are continuing in that regard.
A bushwalker found the youth and called police, who sent a helicopter to retrieve the body. Former West Australian Premier Ray O'Connor has been freed from jail. 69-year-old O'Connor was released from Wooroloo Prison Farm this morning, still declaring his innocence.
Any other day for most, sunrise for former Premier Ray O'Connor today meant freedom. Locked up in Wooroloo Prison Farm for the past 6 months, the 69-year-old who suffers prostate cancer emerged humble and fighting fit. Are you going to fight any further to have your name cleared?
Yes, I am. In being in here, if you ask the warders or the inmates, you'll find that I'm not the only innocent prisoner that went to jail.
Maintaining his innocence, O'Connor was found guilty in February of stealing a $25,000 Bond Corporation cheque. One of his main concerns, that the crime will be what he's most remembered for. Outside prison today, O'Connor's wife and